these dark and troubled times, there is still one thing that unites all of us: pancakes. Everybody makes them. Go anywhere on planet Earth and you will find a unique and delicious way to fry up cakes in a pan. So in the spirit of unity, we're going to eat our way around the world in 80 pancakes. No, not 80, I'd die. Around the world in 8 pancakes. Nope, still too many pancakes. How about 4? 4 pancakes? 4 sounds good. Fry along with us, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell for notifications. Pancakes truly are a global phenomenon, from the Japanese okonomiyaki to the Ethiopian injera to the Russian blini. Every culture has a pancake of its own. Why are pancakes so universal? Well, maybe because they're one of the oldest foods known to man. Mixing up grains and liquid, mainly water, but sometimes milk and oil, and then heating that batter up on a hot surface has been in culinary practice since ancient days. In fact, remains from a body that dates back to 3400 BC show that his last meal was probably an ancient variant of pancakes. Itzi, a Neolithic mummy found in the Itzel Alps, was examined with a CAT scan in 2009. Scientists found the remains of einkorn wheat bran in his stomach, along with traces of charcoal, indicating that he had eaten some kind of bread cooked over coals, the Neolithic pancake. Since then, humanity has been frying up starchy cake everywhere we've gone, from wheat to corn, even rice and potatoes. And for this video, we're defining pancake as mainly starch mixed with some kind of liquid to make a batter, not a dough that is cooked in a pan but not deep fried. I'm not saying there can't be any other ingredients like eggs or sugar or chocolate chips or bacon, but it has to have a starch and it has to be a batter. I'm looking at you, ova sfongia ex lacte. If anyone tries to tell you that this is the first Roman recipe for pancakes, don't believe them. This recipe calls for eggs and milk, no flour. It is an omelet, maybe even a frittata, but it is only a pancake insofar as it is cooked in a pan. I am also discounting the other, quote, Roman pancake, alita dulcia. According to my sources, that's more of a fried polenta rather than the precursor to what we'd consider a pancake today. Greece, on the other hand, is a different story. Tiganites are a Greek pancake made with flour and water, fried in olive oil, and topped with honey. One of the first documented recipes for tiganites was by the Greek physician Galen, who wrote about them in his book De Alimentorum Facultatibus, or On the Properties of Foodstuffs. This wasn't a cookbook, it was more of a dietary guide for healthy living, so I think we can conclude that pancakes are a health food. Moving forward to the Middle Ages, and pancakes start branching out from simple flour and water mixtures to the staples we know and love today. Britain especially used pancakes to celebrate Shrove Tuesday, a precursor to what we call Fat Tuesday here in America. Shrove Tuesday is the last day of feasting before the 40 days of Lenten fasting. So the British would celebrate by stuffing themselves full of fluffy, decadent pancakes topped with berries, honey, and nuts. You can even find an original recipe for these pancakes in The Complete Cook, a recipe book published in 1658 that includes 6 eggs, a pint of cream, and as much flour as will thicken. Yeah, old-timey recipes are surprisingly vague on measurements. The British still celebrate Shrove Tuesday today as Pancake Day, and they celebrate by making pancakes that are thin, similar to a French crepe, and topping them with lemon juice and sugar. Listen, I am not opposed to a variety of toppings on any kind of pancake, but this makes me angrier than any food combination I've ever heard of. I'm sure this is fine. I'm sure it tastes fine. I like lemon, I like sugar. These 2 ingredients mix well, but for some reason this is like the most offensive topping to any pancake I can think of. Like, what happened, Britain? What have you done? Alright, British pancakes aside, let's take a look at the wide world of international pancakes. Eating east to west. Now, pancakes can be sweet or savory, and in the Far East, they have a wide variety of vegetable pancakes. Some of the most prevalent veggie fillings are scallions and cabbage, like in the Korean kimchi pancake, Kimchijeon. Kimchi is a spicy fermented cabbage, and it's not for everyone, but I love it. I opened a new jar for this recipe, and listen. Oh, that sweet, sweet fermentation. For my batter, I used flour, onion, and, of course, kimchi. It couldn't be simpler. Actually, it could be simpler. You could just use flour and kimchi, but the onions add a little more flavor, and I also included some seasoning like salt, pepper, and a pinch of sugar for the same reason. Traditionally, you'll also see scallions, but I didn't have any on hand, so I just stuck with the onion. You'll want your kimchi in bite-sized pieces. Now, I'm using store-bought kimchi, and it's already pre-chopped, but the pieces are still a little big, so I'm going to use this fancy trick to make them smaller. Ready? That's right, I'm just using kitchen scissors. And they are kitchen scissors. They are not the kind of scissors I'd use in my office. You also want to use some of the juices from the kimchi in your liquid base. Some recipes I've seen call for only a few tablespoons, others for as much as a half cup. It depends on your taste and also how much batter you're planning to make. With the store-bought kind, I always find this step difficult since I never seem to have that much juice, but it would probably be different if you had homemade kimchi. As a side note, if you know someone who makes real homemade kimchi, marry them or something, because that stuff is good as gold. Adopt them as a parent, a grandparent, whatever floats your boat. Anyway, next step is to mix it all together. So I'm just dropping my kimchi and my onion into the flour, giving that a toss to make sure it's coated, and then pouring in some cold water. Your batter should be pretty thin and runny. Now, I love a kimchi pancake, but I am not great at making them. So here is a tip I learned. Drop in some ice cubes to the batter to make it super cold. This helps with the next step, frying. Now, for the frying, you'll need enough oil to cover the pan. Then pour your batter in and spread it out a little. Another tip I learned was to shake the pan occasionally to make sure the bottom isn't sticking. You want your kimchi pancake to get crispy and brown on the bottom before you flip it. How do you know when it's ready? Well, you'll start to see the edges of the pancake go from shiny batter to a matte or flat batter. That's when you'll know it's ready. And ta-da! It could probably be a little browner, but that's good enough for me. Let it sit on this side, continuing to shake the pan to avoid sticking, and when the bottom is brown and crispy, you're ready to serve. Top with scallions, pork, shrimp, anything you like. I'm keeping this one simple and serving mine with a dipping sauce that I threw together using soy sauce, vinegar, and sugar. Heading west, let's stop in Lebanon and try some Atayef Asafiri, a traditional treat that's most popular during Ramadan. Atayef comes in many forms, but the Atayef Asafiri is the most pancake-like. These pancakes are smaller than most of their brethren, but lighter, fluffier, and filled with a sweet cream mixture, and then topped with pistachios and flavored syrup. The key? Only cook these on one side. Don't flip them. Here's how I did it. Take flour, semolina, baking powder, and sugar, and mix those together. I'm also using yeast, and since my yeast is active dry and not instant, I'm going to let that bloom in my water for a few minutes just to wake it up. If you're using instant yeast, you can add it to the rest of the dry ingredients. When the yeast is ready, drop that into your dry ingredients and let it sit for a few minutes. For this recipe, you only need a small amount of oil, just enough to grease the pan, but leaving it mostly dry. Drop your batter in and wait for the bubbles. Good atayef should have lots of tiny bubbles popping on the surface. My first one did not have enough bubbles, so I added a little more water to thin the batter out, and voila! Remember, these guys do not get flipped. They are only cooked on one side. Let them sit in the pan long enough for the top to go from shiny to matte, then remove them from the heat. Mine is golden brown on one side, full of holes on the other, and also super delicious. Some atayef is then filled and deep fried, kind of like a dumpling. I am making 4 different pancakes in one sitting, so we're just gonna fill these and call it a day. For the filling, those in the Middle East use a special type of soft cheese or clotted cream called ashtar. If you can't find that in your local grocery store, you can use a ricotta or a farmer's cheese. You can also find recipes to make your own, but I used farmer's cheese because, again, I am making 4 types of pancakes. It's a lot of pancakes, guys. I sweeten my cheese with some sugar and a little honey just for fun. To fill the atayef, you pinch one end closed so it looks a little like a trumpet and stuff the cheese in the hole. Dip it in crushed pistachios and drizzle it with syrup. Traditionally, the syrup used is called ater and is flavored with rose water or orange blossom water. Alright, all the way across the Atlantic we have Venezuelan cachapas. Cachapas are a street food made with whole corn kernels, a little bit of corn flour or masa, and a whole lot of cheese. So first up, you want to blend all your ingredients together in a blender or a food processor. I dropped in corn, some corn flour, salt, sugar, milk, and an egg, and blended it until it looked like pancake batter. Let that sit in your fridge for a few minutes to set, and while that's happening, heat your pan with a pat of butter to grease it. When your batter is ready, spoon it into the pan and spread it out a little. When the bottom is brown, flip it over and let it cook for a minute or two on the other side. Now, cachapas are served folded over like a tortilla and filled with cheese, typically queso blanco, but you can substitute that for a mild mozzarella if you can't find it in your local grocery store. I put my queso blanco on while the pancake was still in the pan to get it to melt a little bit. It sort of worked, but I was maybe too hungry to wait for it to melt all the way. Finally, let's head north to the US for some good old-fashioned flapjacks. Light, fluffy, dripping with butter and syrup, this is the breakfast of weekend champions, if those champions don't have anything important to do after breakfast. There are so many varieties of pancakes in America. Buttermilk, buckwheat, Johnny cakes, Dutch babies, sourdough. But today I'm sticking to a classic recipe with a few upgraded techniques. For this version, I'm going to use my stand mixer to beat the milk and eggs until they are light and foamy. This will help your pancakes come out extra light and fluffy. Once this mixture is ready, I'm going to add in some melted butter and then gently mix that into my dry ingredients, flour, salt, sugar, and baking powder. Then let the batter rest for at least 15 minutes. This helps the batter thicken and relaxes some of that gluten in the flour to keep your pancakes from getting tough. For this recipe, I also greased the pan with butter because it's pancakes. What's pancakes without butter? You'll want to leave the pancake on one side until air bubbles begin to pop on the surface. That's when you'll know to flip it over. Cook until brown on the bottom and serve with any number of ingredients. I'm going with the classic 1-2 punch, butter and maple syrup. Some final tips I learned for your next pancake endeavor. Number 1, watch for texture. If you're a pancake novice, you may be worried about when to flip your pancake. A good general rule of thumb that worked in all these recipes was to watch for when the edges go from a shiny texture to a matte, i.e. not shiny, texture. In some cases, this will be accompanied by air bubbles popping on the surface, but that is not the case in all batters. Number 2, there is a saying in French that goes, the first crêpe is for the dog, meaning don't expect your first crepe or pancake to turn out nice. I found that to be pretty much the case in literally all of these pancake recipes. That's okay. That's why your batter makes at least 4 pancakes. 1 for the dog, 3 for you, or all of them for you. You don't have to care. And that's the world in 4 pancakes. No matter how we make them, top them, or eat them, we all have a pancake to share. Well, except for you, England. I don't really trust your pancakes. What's your favorite type of pancake? Got any tips for flipping the perfect one? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications so you know the next time we're serving up some fresh hot fact bites. Thanks for watching!